Hey coaches, today we're going to be looking at a mindset coaching canvas. This resource or tool is a combination between Carol Dweck's work with fixed and growth mindsets and combining that with very common approaches in cognitive behavioral work. Much of what makes cognitive behavioral work is that it is looking at the interconnections and the interplay between thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. And as we make adjustments, as we bring up different thoughts, as we highlight alternatives, it helps an individual take more control of their patterns between, again, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. One of the things that's very useful is to look at one's automatic thoughts, the impact those automatic thoughts have in any given situation, and then the disputing, still true, but disputing thoughts and facts that help adjust, reorient the perspective around a given situation. Can then going on to consider what difference might that make on emotions and behaviors. This is all, again, very common within cognitive behavioral work. If we bring these two ideas of mindset and cognitive behavioral work, looking at emotion, thoughts, and behaviors, we can look at creating a bit of a coaching canvas that is very useful within a coaching session, whether we use it visually with the client, helping them fill it out, like co-designing this exploration, or we can just simply influence our questioning based on the value of looking at the fixed mindset thoughts and their impact and the alternative growth mindset thoughts and their impact. So as you take a look at this tool, consider first when you would use it. If you are hearing thoughts, statements from a client in a session where they're saying things like, I'm just not that kind of individual. I've never been that kind of a leader. I've never been good at that. They will always be better at this. That's just not my thing. This is just something that's too challenging for me. I'm not the type of individual who can do that type of thing. These fixed mindset statements are very important to address before digging deeply into action and planning, because if those mindsets persist, then any action and planning is going to really be stymied. If the person says, I'm not the kind of leader who can overcome this challenge, and the coach says, what are you going to do about fixing the challenge, doing the challenge? They're not able to. The leader, they cannot lead that way because that's not the type of person they are. Unless we address the mindset to some degree with creating awareness or highlighting their fixed mindset language, then any action they take is going to be, they're going to drag themselves down with their own thoughts. So when we hear that fixed mindset language, we can highlight the value of exploring a tool like this mindset coaching canvas. As with any tool, you get the permission to share. You share succinctly and usually around the outcome. And in this case, it would be helping them have more effectiveness with the decisions and actions they're taking as they're having to deal with this challenge. We're not necessarily saying we're going to fix them so that they really do something about this. We're not going to necessarily say we're going to make this thing that seems impossible, help them do some great self-talk, and now they're going to see how doable it is. Because on the client side, that can feel like you're not really listening to them. Instead, we want to highlight the value of the outcome and the way it's going to work. So the way I would share this with a client, hey, there's a tool that might be useful as we unpack the way you see the situation and how we might be able to improve your chances of overcoming this difficult challenge. The way this would work is we'd look at the thoughts that you have right now, the way you see the situation right now, and the impact that has on you, and then look at some alternative but still true facts and questions that might be helpful to more fully prepare you mentally and emotionally for what is going to be a big challenge. Would you be interested in this type of exercise with our coaching session today? Then, if, again, they agree, as always, you can jump in. First few columns are going to be looking at the fixed mindset, and the second set of columns are going to be looking at the growth mindset adjustment. Here, I want you to challenge the client to surface their fixed language. Go ahead and help them look under the rock of what they they believe about themselves in the situation. You probably have already heard one or two of these instances of their language, so you can go ahead and fill these things out. Earlier, you said that you are not the kind of leader who can do this and that you've never done this before and you're just not sure if it's going to work. As you think about this situation, what other thoughts come to your mind in terms of how challenging this is? What other things are you saying to yourself that make it really look almost impossible, and so on? So you're kind of prompting the unhelpful thoughts, and you're surfacing those under this fixed mindset category, not offering judgment that these things are wrong, but just putting them down in the fixed mindset category. I've never done this as a leader is maybe very true. But if we only focus on that as a leader, then that's a fixed mindset thought. It's going to keep us here. I have to make this perfect is a thought that keeps us here in this column, in this idea of a fixed mindset. So you want to capture those. And then with each of them, ideally you have maybe anywhere from 2 to 5. With each of them, help them consider what impact those have on their emotions. If you need to, you can even step back into like a third-person perspective. If any leader in this type of role were to be saying this to themselves, what impact would it have on their emotions? What impact, if you were to have these on your wall, on your motivational posters every day, what impact would that have on your motivation or on your emotions and so on? And then moving into behaviors. A leader who has these kinds of emotions and these kinds of thoughts going through their mind and their heart every day, what impact might that have on their team? What impact would these have on your team? What impact would these have on the way you behave at work? So you're just capturing these things within these 3 columns to create a full picture of the one side. Then we look at the other side, and it's very important. We're not highlighting the real truth. Instead, we're highlighting the alternative growth mindset language. I am just a perfectionist. I can't get this done as quickly as they want me to, is the one side on fixed. On the growth mindset side, others have been successful at launching projects. I can grow with being 90% perfectionist. 90% perfectionist might be all that I write there as a coach. And as a coach, I can help them unpack what these might be. But it's very important, especially ideally you have more than one. So with like the first one, you can help them build that language, but we really want to step back. We want this individual to come up with their own language that challenges, that questions the fixed mindset. So in the growth mindset thought category, these can be just thoughts, or they can be questions that are useful. I've never been this kind of leader on the one side. Can be on the other side. How can I grow to be that kind of leader? What would a person need to learn in order to be known as that type of leader? And so on. Oftentimes the language of the fixed mindset can be just slightly adjusted in the growth mindset category, including things like learn and grow. Again, you can help prompt the client, but anytime you prompt the client, this might be the growth mindset version. What would the coach should hand that back? What would you say is the growth mindset thought here? How would you like to say it? If you were to tell yourself something around this, how would you phrase it? So make sure they are co-designing the growth mindset statements and thoughts and questions so that it is their experience. Once you have that column built out, then you can, again, revisit the emotions. As you imagine yourself saying these things over this next week, over the term of the project, what difference might that make on the way you feel, on the emotions that you hold, the emotions you experience? And again, you can step back to third person, another leader who is saying these kinds of things to themselves. What impact might that have on their leader, the way they feel as a leader, the emotions they have as a leader? And of course, then you can go over what impact might that make on you? What impact might that have on third-party leaders, someone, made-up leader, and the way they behave with their team in the project, the effort they put in, and so on. What's most important here is the client. So the coach being right with the right like these are the right questions, these are the right growth mindset thoughts. The coach making sure everything is done all the way through. That's all secondary. If a client, after putting down 3 thoughts in the fixed category and the emotions they feel, and then the impact on their behaviors, they might say, "Whoa, wow, I never realized that's what I'm doing to myself. I'm doing that to myself. You know what?" And then they may just go. They may not need anything else from the coaching session other than the coach prompting them, helping them learn, helping them to apply that learning. We can just say, "So what do you want to say to yourself?" And help them capture that. And we can leave the rest of the coaching canvas alone. That experience is often prompted by the coach as we insert questions on the lines. In many of these tools that you see, and especially the ones in this training, the in-between lines on the columns, that's where the coaching really happens. What is it like hearing yourself say these thoughts out loud? What are you learning about yourself? I'm just going to check in before we go any further to the next column here. What are you learning? What are you noticing? Those kinds of questions are very valuable. You can just ask 1 or 2 of those, move to the next column. You can say, "Hey, what are you learning?" Pause. "Would you like us to go ahead and go to the next column?" And so on. Like, just make it a good partnership. Make it about coaching, make it about the client, and not just pushing the tool. We want to make sure it is their exploration. Once it's all done, we take a step back. What stood out most to you in this experiment? What have you appreciated about it? What are you learning? What do you want to say to yourself? How will you remember these thoughts? All of these things lead into the action and planning. And oftentimes in this type of exploration, as we've said with previous sessions, the action and planning is going to be around the remembering of what they want to say to themselves. So we've covered a lot of ground here. In the homework for this week, there's also a post-session or in-between session exercise that you can offer a client where they are capturing the fixed mindset thoughts and the growth mindset questions that can be alternatives. This can be a very useful post-session after using a canvas like this, like a post-session exercise for them to apply what they've learned into the field, into their reality. So check that out as well. Always keep in mind the importance of partnering around something like this and the value of the client's exploration throughout it. But hopefully this is helpful in deepening the client's awareness, helping you deepen the client's awareness around that fixed language. Because again, if we just go straight to action and planning with the fixed mindset firmly rooted, it's very hard to see success. Thank you so much for continuing to grow as a coach, and thank you for coaching.